Greetings from Alaska. It became the 49th state on January 3rd, 1959. 670,000 residents rank it 47th in population. In 1867, fear that Britain might dominate the entire northern half of the continent led U.S. Secretary of State William Seward to purchase Alaska from Imperial Russia. The cost, $7.2 million, or 2 cents an acre. The impact was immediate, increasing the size of the nation's territory by 20%. In terms of square miles, Anchorage, Juneau, and Sitka are America's largest cities, and Juneau is the only state capital accessible solely by water or air.
I was raised in a town called Homer, Alaska, and it's actually the farthest west you can drive. It's the end of the road. So anything west beyond that, you have to take a little bush plane or a boat.
Airplanes in Alaska are just a part of life. All the remote villages and everything, that's the only way you can get there.
Alaska is a land of extremes. In the north, the sun sets in mid-November and doesn't reappear for more than 2 months.
You go to work in the dark and you return home in the dark. And we have lighted ski trails and lots of activities going so that hopefully you can fight what we call cabin fever.
In the summer, you can go, for example, golfing at 9 p.m. at night and get 18 holes in and still be daylight.
You live through a long, dark, hard, very confining winter, and everybody's so glad to get out in the summer that you'll see people mowing their lawn at 2 a.m.
Despite modern developments, frontier conditions still exist in Alaska. Day to day, life can be rugged.
My family was one of the original pioneers. My grandfather actually helped draft the Alaska Constitution. He was a senator, and he helped homestead during the Second World War, and they carved out an existence really out of the wilderness.
Alaska's natural magnificence is unparalleled. It's home to the tallest mountain in North America, McKinley, also known as Denali. It's an easy place to get lost. You could fit both California and Texas inside Alaska and still have room for New Mexico.
If you want to get out in the woods, it's a lot more accessible, but it's also as dangerous, as it was years ago. You just have to be smart about it.
You have to be prepared for cold weather, for running into a bear, that kind of stuff. There are several hundred moose in the Anchorage area, whether it's on the highway or whether we're, on the sidewalk and a moose pops out from between two houses. You just got to be aware of that. It's just part of living here.
In the winter, my family was actually on something called the roadkill list, because you would hit a moose and they'd freeze instantly, and it was like so much good meat that a lot of people would just sign up for it. Is that weird?
The biggest state in the nation has the lowest population density in the nation. As a matter of fact, if Manhattan had as many people per square mile as Alaska, there would only be 31 people in Manhattan. Alaska's native peoples encompass 11 distinct cultures, among them the Eskimo, who, contrary to popular belief, do not kiss by rubbing noses.
But there is something that we do that I think is what people mistook, which is called, it's a nachka, and it's like you smell the person and you kiss them at the same time.
The majority of Alaskans live in a fairly confined area along the state's railroad belt between Seward and Anchorage.
Once you get beyond the road corridor, there's a great deal of wilderness out there.
The vast, remote landscape of Alaska has been a breeding ground for some unique historic moments.
The gold rush was definitely an exciting time for Alaska. And that is when dog sledding became much more popular and a way that people traveled.
During the brutal winter months, many gold districts became inaccessible. The only way in was along dog sled trails that allowed for the transport of mail and badly needed supplies. In 1925, dog sledders delivered life-saving diphtheria serum to snowbound Nome, Alaska, which was threatened by an epidemic.
Carrying the antitoxin from the railhead all the way to the town of Nome. Teams of dogs were posted along the way, and the precious antitoxin was transferred from team to team until it got to Nome.
Pound for pound, these animals can actually outdistance and outhaul any beast of burden.
Dog sled was a very important way of being able to move people and goods around, particularly during the first third of the 20th century. They didn't last very much longer after that because with the advent of aviation, then dog sleds were relegated to fairly local use.
And when that occurred, we were in jeopardy of losing this phenomenal tradition. And that's how the Iditarod Trail sled dog race really came to reality.
It's been called the last great race on Earth. Following a trail over 1,150 miles long, the Iditarod commemorates the crucial role that sled dogs played in the settlement of Alaska.
Well, you look at the Iditarod nowadays, it's the Super Bowl of Alaska.
There are 16 dogs that are harnessed in the Iditarod Trail sled dog race, and they carry a mush or a sled. These canine athletes are extremely powerful. They can pull up to 1,200 pounds. This team can run 6-minute miles all day long.
A far more important but less well-known event took place on Alaskan soil during World War II.
In early June of 1942, Japanese planes strafed the military base at Dutch Harbor in the Aleutian Islands, and on that very same day, Japanese forces occupied Attu and Kiska, which was at the far end of the Aleutian chain. This was the first time since the War of 1812 in which foreign forces had actually taken over U.S. soil.
The Japanese were there for about a year, and a major offensive in the fog and bad weather drove them off the island. Large loss of life on both sides.
More than 2,300 Japanese soldiers were killed, along with 549 Americans, in the engagement known as the Forgotten Campaign.
The effect on Alaska was that it developed our infrastructure. Millions of dollars were spent building docks and airports and harbor facilities that many of them are still in use to this day.
Another battle, one of technology, not warfare, has changed the face of Alaska even more. In 1968, oil was discovered at Prudhoe Bay. A lot of oil. The big challenge was how to transport it to the nearest ice-free port 800 miles away. Concerns about the environmental impact on the Arctic wilderness added controversy to the undertaking. A pipeline was determined to be the only viable system.
It's a big pipeline, 48 inches, one of the largest ever built, and permafrost was a huge problem. Didn't want the hot oil to be melting the permanently frozen ground. Mountain ranges had to be crossed, large rivers, including the Yukon River. The engineers added a lot of features to the pipeline, which added to the cost of the pipeline, but in retrospect, I believe prevented major disasters happening along the pipeline itself.
Construction on the Trans-Alaska Pipeline began on March 27, 1975. 26 months and $8 billion later, the project was completed. Since then, an average of 1.3 million barrels a day have been pumped through the pipeline across some of the most remote and spectacular scenery in the world.
Look here, I'm talking about America, sweet America.